Okay, good. So here's the deal. DS-106, not necessarily running as a class here at Mary Washington, but Michael Branson Smith and Cheryl Colan might be playing with their classes along the D06 model. We might even bring it into the DS-106 course. But I, for one, as well as Martha, Tim, and Andy, and I think Todd is also interested in playing along in whatever we come up with. So I'm kind of thinking about this semester as a free-form DS-106, where if other people run the course, like Michael or Cheryl, we'll play around with that. I know I'll comment and be a part of that. But then I'm also going to regularly do assignments and also kind of do some tutorials for students as they're working on assignments, because that's something I want to build up in the DS-106 thing now. So I totally want to do DS-106. I don't care if I'm teaching the class or not. I want to be a part of it. And then the idea is, can we get some narrative to tie everything together so that we can actually have a regular kind of narrative playing along? So that's what I kind of left off with. I know there's some questions like Tom Woodward brought up about whether we have a non-fiction narrative or fiction narrative. I personally would much rather have a fiction narrative to have fun with, and like the apocalypse thing totally appeals to me. But I don't care about that. I just want to know how Michael, Todd, Cheryl, and Dr. Garcia, how do you guys feel about this? You can go one at a time. I'll hit you first. Cheryl, how do you feel about this?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You said you wanted me to talk.
I want you to talk, if you do.
So, I just started Tuesday, an experimental design. It's not really a digital storytelling.
Can you hear her?
It's a visual and audio and it's more about putting your digital identity than it is a storytelling. Are you guys hearing me?
I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not really hearing you.
Are you on wireless right now?
I might have to go exchange out the phone.
It's getting better.
Better?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Hey, come back to me. And I'll see what I can
Okay,
find.
we'll come back to you in a second, Cheryl. You get that going. Michael, what do you think?
What do I think about? Can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, about the course on DS-106's site, or about the overall narrative ideas?
Yeah, both.
Okay. Well, first, the course, I mean, I think it would be amazing. I have actually 2 sections of a course of 20 students each. That's technically a hybrid course, so it's half face-to-face and half online.
Awesome.
So it's going to be living online anyway for a large amount. And,
Nice.
you know, I think it's going to freak them out, but I'm really excited about the idea of pushing them out into this open world. And, you know, I wonder if you guys, I don't want to put too much pressure on you guys, though, but facilitating them through the DS-106 site, like, you know, getting them set up is one thing in terms of, you know, they have to set up their blogs, and then we have to get you their feeds and whatnot. But I don't want it to be too much. If that's okay, then we're in. And
yeah, I'm in love with that idea.
And I think it's fun. And as far as the syllabus goes, like, you know, this course is being modified. Our course used to be this straightforward portrait doc course, really very video centric, and, you know, basics of tools of Final Cut Pro and whatnot. But it was an intro course for a media major, and we're excited for this to be like a new foundation and getting students to have their own domains from the moment they get into our major. So we think it's a really great idea.
Awesome. So
that's why I'm excited about it.
When does
and
your
then
course
more
start?
importantly, not only they're getting into the major, but they're getting into a community. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
That's
you know, to think that, like, as new cohorts of students take that intro course, and we run it every semester, at least 20 students a semester, then you have this growing number of students that have tried it, and there's at least always, it seems like, 2 or 3 that hang out forever.
That's right.
And then that'll just keep the community growing.
Okay.
And then my colleague Daniel, you know, who runs our advanced, like, TV classes, he's already been thinking about ways like how his advanced students could start contributing to the narrative too, especially after they've taken the class. Like he's doing this motion graphics course this semester, and he's like, okay, well, let's say there's a disaster. Maybe I could gear my students toward building like basically motion graphic props for some crazy green screen or something like that, you know, which would be awesome. Which we thought about, like, how do you take it to the next advanced class? And some of the ways is like, well, then they become some of the builders of materials and stuff, you know.
I love it.
So that's where I am at. And as far as the narrative, I mean, I think that the disaster narrative is pretty fun. I watched Poseidon Adventure again for the first time in like a few years. And it's got some good stuff, like good ideas. I took notes and I was looking at them, and the notion of, you know, there's one of the big things is like there's the Ernest Borgnine character versus Gene Hackman, and there's alliances like who knows the right way to survive and stuff like that. And
totally.
So people could have to choose and then advocate for their way of surviving and things like that. I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of other stuff and. What was that? You know, the notion of at some point, one of the instructors have to go down with the ship as it gets destroyed. so we get to have people dying, which would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and one of the Poseidon Adventure was the ship was forced into this. It was kind of like a Titanic situation where the captain knew better than to continue on, but the corporate forces are like, we must continue, and so. You know, Leslie Nielsen has a great, you irresponsible bastard.
That's right.
Pull ahead.
We could have the you know, educate the institution as the corporate force.
Yeah,
and then we have, the professors who go along.
We got to figure out an educational disaster. Like, schools are shutting down for some reason, and we're, like, telling the students, like, there's no class anymore, and we're going to have to figure this out, how they can still get taught and things like that, maybe.
Well, tell me about this fiction versus nonfiction thing, because I did a very controversial tweet, I guess, talking about DS-106 in the fall, and a lot of people were like, oh, don't make it a story, don't make it some, you know, fictional thing, have something with a more greater narrative to it.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there were a lot of people on the fence. Dr. Garcia, who more does stuff with the radio, and I'm trying to remember who else, I think Julia Forsyth and Tom Woodward were all sort of saying, you know, don't do something fake, do something real.
I personally would much rather do something fake and have fun with it and allude maybe to the real and play with the real. But I think when you take yourself too seriously or you play that documentary effect, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, it would feel like labor, like work. Yeah. When you do it, it's this kind of fictional thing that any day could be a new story and you're just playing around with it. And your creativity and imagination is the limit. I personally, not that documentary film can't be like that, not that good stuff, but it's just for me, I would much prefer the fictional stuff. That's just a preference. I think you can say just as much critically about a culture in a moment through fiction as you can through nonfiction. I think that distinction is somewhat overwrought.
Well, my whole argument with it on Twitter was just that I feel like when you've got that fictional narrative, it leads to a lot more creativity. I feel like, you know, the Summer of Oblivion is, you know, proof of concept for that. That, like, when you give people when you put boundaries in it and say, we're just going to talk about this, or we're just going to do this little thing, okay, that's fine. But when you say, do a radio show and just sky's the limit, do whatever you want, then you get the pirates and stuff, and I know Lou McGill's watching. It's like, you know, then you get all this fun fictional narrative, and I think that's where you can really have students creating stuff that's going to be awesome for portfolio work.
Yeah, and I think you can still do great nonfiction stuff. I'm not saying that a class couldn't, but I know if, like, I was going to be an integral part of a class, and it was, you know, I knew I was going to put in a lot of work to it, and I was going to be one of the people driving it, I guess I would want to go with the thing I want to do and feel more comfortable with, and that would be why I'd throw it back at Michael or at Cheryl if they're going to be doing the class. Like, what do you guys want to do? Because it doesn't really matter in this sense what we want to do. We'll play around no matter what.
We'll do whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly. We'll come up with whatever.
Yep. Cheryl, can you try now? Are you mic'd up all right?
She's on.
Uh-oh.
She doesn't have video.
She's been chatting.
No, I see her in the chat, though.
Okay.
And we can't read the chat, so.
Yeah, we can't read the chat from here, Cheryl.
Yeah.
She does.
I'm going to ask her to tell her to drop the video and try to just do the audio and see if that'll make a difference.
Yeah, that might make a difference. So, Todd, what do you think?
Sure. I vote fiction. I like stories, and I think you're absolutely right that fiction really is the same. It's telling the same stuff, but for a class like this, and I think it's more creative, more open to possibilities, and I just like reading stories. I get more from a historical fiction about that time than I would, I think, the actual documentation, but that's just my preference.
Yeah.
But I think what Michael's thing is, to me, it's almost like what he's doing with asking them to create their own space, just from the architecture of the class. I think that was one of the fascinating things about the first DS-106 for me, was just this idea of syndicating feeds into one single site. I mean, just the architecture of that radically changed the game. So I vote that people like Cheryl or Michael, I mean, I am, right now, I'm so into talking with teachers about creating their own domains, because I just feel like, that's a hugely empowering thing in this day and age, and like you were saying with art students, I mean, what could be more valuable these days to them as a marketing tool, as a communication tool, as a whatever, than actually learning to own and operate their own domain? So I kind of like that going first, and then once that container is built, whether they feed into DS-106 or whether you create your own site and have them do it, then you can kind of pour in some narrative into that feed, and,
that's right.
And whether it's fiction or nonfiction, I think that's...
Well, I would love the idea, I mean, going on what you said, Todd, and playing off what you said, Michael, too, a little bit, is I would love the idea of DTLT maybe comes in as the remote newsroom that talks to a domain of one's own, and that does the tutorials online through the video and brings people in, like you, Todd, to say why it's so important. But then here's a step-by-step of how you do it as you're going along. And so, like, I would love it if, like, you outsource that part of your class, Michael, like you talked about it, and you said, like, watch this video, get on this live feed to learn how to do it and ask them questions, and we'll get them in. And so, like, we can help you teach that whole part of the class, get you up with it. Or if you want to teach it, you go ahead and do it. But then that introduces us to them as a kind of part of the class, and then we keep on coming back in with these news kind of informational things, and then the story starts subtly taking on shape, like as it did with Oblivion.
No, that's what I found exciting. Like, I think that, I mean, I'm on board with the domain. To me, I really think it's for us, since it's an intro course, we want it to be that foundation, and I think it's a great rationale, like, that they don't hear. I mean, it's a rationale that faculty don't even hear enough, so yeah, I'm on board with that, and then we'll figure out. I mean, a lot of the assignments are fabulous, and we'll figure them out. But the narrative is going to be fun, and I think it'll be fun if we can figure out ways of having short chats or whatever about, like, ideas. Like, I think that ultimately is what value in the building a narrative comes from, is you have these brief moments to, like, say, okay, let's throw this at everybody this week and see how they react.
Exactly.
Or maybe it's over a 2-week cycle.
I love it.
Cheryl, did you get back in?
When it is, like, one of the things that's fun too is because everybody was talking about, like, how do we get them, and it makes me think of a combination of have you guys ever heard of the 48-hour film festival concepts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where basically all these filmmakers show up at a location, and they all agree to make a movie in 2 days, and they give you certain things that have to be part of the movie, like, it has to be of a certain theme, or you have to see a woman in a red dress, and you have to see this or that. And, I think that's one of the ways that we could craft assignments and mix that with some, in a sense, some choose your own adventure styled ideas.
Martha Berta said that a lot during the summer course. She would do that. She'd have them in her classroom, and she'd say, "All right, here's what you're doing right now. Here's your few restrictions that you've got to do based on this. Do this assignment. Now go and do it." And within 1 hour, they had to come up with something. And she said that was some of the best work. Yeah. And they didn't,
Right.
there wasn't a worry about you have this much time to turn in an assignment because it had to be done by the end of that class period.
Right.
So, yeah.
I love that idea of rapid prototyping online. And that's like where Photoshop Pong came into being, like where you do one thing, you throw it to someone else, they Photoshop it, you throw it back, and then you have something. Like, I would love it if we could rapid prototype some of those events that you're talking about and maybe attach them to, like, someone went missing, something happened, do a design poster. Do an audio commercial, get the word out there. Do an Amber report, whatever it is,
It's like it's a daily shoot. It's a daily shoot in a design aspect of it. It's not just taking a picture, but it's saying, here's what we want you to do today, now do it, and then we'll feed in the results of it on this page, and you get to see it blossom over the period of 24 or 48 hours from that assignment.
And just keeping it loose oftentimes allows everything to start emerging. And then by week 3 or 4, we'll have an idea of where we're going, and people will start locking into character. People start doing stuff and start getting crazy. And then the students who want to play along full-blown will, and those who don't will still be able to do the assignments and get by.
Yeah, and you know what I like is I like the idea of not telling them about the narrative at first.
Yeah, don't tell them anything. Totally.
Especially
and
if
hope
we
they
go
don't
with
find
the
this video.
That's right.
Disaster thing, we get to literally spring on them.
That's right. That's brilliant. And the motion stuff is great. Cheryl, you're back in. So what do you think, Cheryl? Have you followed some of this?
Can you guys hear me this
Yes,
time?
we can hear you great.
Perfectly.
Okay, great. So my class, I have a class starting Tuesday that's an experimental class. It's called Design for Social Media. And so it's not really a digital storytelling. I have been following you, and I will get to what I think, I swear.
Oh, no, please.
But I just wanted to go back and tell you, my situation is a little bit different. But I think the idea that I want to pursue with this class is designing a digital identity and setting goals for what you're going to get out of your participation in various forms of social media. And then how do you decide whether the designs that you're building that go with it, like what you put on your Twitter page or what you do in a Facebook page or what you do on your WordPress blog. I will have everybody make their own WordPress or some type of blog. But document your process, see if you got the types of results you were expecting or if something else happened, and then lather and rinse and repeat and increase your participation. So that's sort of what my class is going to do. There's no reason that they couldn't join DS 106 radio if any of the students want to go that way. But what I'm ending up with as a group of students, just based on emails I've been sent so far, is some people are interested in marketing, some people want to make their own website. So I kind of want my students' goals to drive what they get to do and the ways that they get to participate. And I may, if they're not coming up with ideas, I may go ahead and introduce a little fictional element that we can all play with. And like Jim was saying a minute ago, keep it loose so that I can see, where they want to go, and then I can add in things that would support them in that, but at the same time throw them a curve or a challenge and see what they do with it. And what I'm most interested in is what sort of community will I end up with, and can it join in with DS 106 somehow? But I don't know if it's appropriate for me to actually say use the DS 106 site. Use some assignments from it, definitely. Use maybe a lot of the things that go with it, but I'm not really sure how my class fits exactly. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I would love to. Okay, go ahead.
And then regarding the arsenal element, I think you converted me a little bit. I'm more of a keep it real person, do something real. But if my students want to play, I definitely would go with fiction and play with them. You know what I mean? So I think I'd like to see a mix of both in my class.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'll speak to right away is what I like about possibly when your students get a blog or WordPress or whatever they do, however they do that, one of the things to think about is if you have a list of their URLs and of their sites, and if they create a profile on the DS-106 site, what that will afford is it doesn't have to be the main home for them. They don't even have to think about it too much. But what it can become is a place for them to have an audience besides the 25 people in your class. And one of the things that's been nice about DS-106 as a course site is that you read people's work and you don't know who's where. Like you don't know who's at CUNY, you don't know who's at UMW, you don't know who's at Arizona. So you start to see them as an identity apart from a class, which is one thing that might be, and it might be an immediate value to your students no matter what they want to do, Cheryl.
I completely agree. I think that I want, if we don't all create profiles at the DS-106 site, I still want to talk to you about what plugin that is that sucks in everybody's category feed from their blog, because I'm still going to need one place to go to look at it all for grading purposes.
That's right.
So, I need to set up something similar if we don't use DS-106. But then I would encourage them to join DS-106 as well, and I'm still I'm planning to make my class open participation like yours was, so that I can invite people from across the web to play along with us, even though they're not registered in the class.
That's
but
right.
I haven't even begun setting it up yet, so I don't know how successful I'm going to be doing that before Tuesday. But that's the point of the class, is for me to show the students, hey, you can build it on the fly and change it later and make it better, faster, stronger. So, it's okay if they see me setting it up.
Well, one of the things, too, is that if you create a space like that and you use Feed WordPress, which we're using for aggregation, wherever you use it, you can actually, we could take the feed off of that Uber blog and pull it into DS-106, because one of the things about that to me that's interesting is that we can start to see those people and follow them, and it gives us a place whereby we can do it. And then they'll get comments from people who they don't know, and they're like, what? And that to me makes all the difference, is when whatever you're doing is when people start commenting and you know people are reading, and whether or not they choose to play along with the narrative or whatever is kind of neither here nor there. It's that idea of having that community that you're talking about, so that when they're doing their stuff, they're not doing it like the boy in the plastic bubble, right?
Yeah,
Right.
It's this idea of having an audience. You know, and if you have an audience, your narrative changes a bit. The way you present things changes, and I think especially for your class, Cheryl, where it's about digital and social media and identity and social media, it's perfect to have people looking at you while you're doing the thing, because otherwise it's just you doing it in your dorm room and that's it, and this is what it is, and presenting it, whereas social media is about having an audience.
Yeah.
Right. And just so you know, at my community college, we have no dorm rooms, so everybody lives in housing somewhere else. I'm going to have 13 students so far, are all that registered. So it's a nice small group, and the people that will be coming in, I know a few of them think that they're going to learn how to market their business better, and I've already emailed them and said that is so not what I'm about, but if that's your goal, I'll try to help you. I'll try to help point you to resources, and you can do the research and you can learn about it while you're in my class. But I'm not a marketer, I'm a designer, so I'm going to help you with the design process. Is you set a goal, you put your design out there, and you see if the design supported your goal or not. And if it didn't, then you work out, what do I change to make this work better? So if your goal is marketing, fine. And if your goal is getting followers, that's fine. And if your goal is actually connecting with people, that's even better. Yeah. I will have some business people. I will have some more traditional students. I'll have adults returning. I'll have people that are in their 40s that just want to learn how to make something work on the web. I'll have people who are 19. I'll have awesome. a pretty good mix of people on my own. And then if you add in DS-106 community, it'll be really great.
Yeah, and I want to kind of repay the favor of you. I mean, all the work you did for various students over the Summer of Oblivion was amazing.
But then I left you.
Well, you went to the UK. Anyone who goes to the UK is invaluable of no value to me, let me put it that way, because I'm an American, damn it. But no,
we
more
were
to the point.
in the UK.
Yeah, I know, isn't that terrible?
We were there to try the beer. What can I say?
No.
Yeah.
I gotta do a Google Hangout with Lisa Lane in like 3 minutes. But
Oh, no.
can I? So can I just make one quick comment here about the DS-106 community and the structure or the shape of that thing that happened, which was this DS-106.us and stuff going in there. You know, I think the big goal of this is to create other communities like that, not to replicate what DS-106 was. So,
Good idea.
But then at the same time, somehow, I hope, for me certainly, to tie any participation that I have in some other class somehow into my contributions to this kind of base DS-106 environment, which to me is about storytelling, but it's also about teaching and learning at a much larger scale. Like why can't we do this at other institutions and in other courses like Michael and Cheryl are doing? So, yeah.
Well, I agree with you.
That's what I got.
And I think the point you make is a good one. It's like, I don't want DS-106 like I'm pushing that like it's crack, you know? Like, use DS-106 and, you know, you're not doing it.
Dude, I'm buying, man.
Exactly.
Give me my fix.
I don't want to do that. But I'm just thinking, like, that's kind of where we started to build the community, and that's one way to kind of, like, channel it. But I think you're right, Todd. I mean, it's also about people jumping out, doing their own communities based on it, and then seeing what goes. So,
yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I got to go. This is awesome, and thank all of you for everything you guys do. I think that this is really an important step in what the learning environment can look like, and the opportunity we all have to share our ideas with one another.
yeah.
And I got to go.
All right.
Take care, Todd.
Thanks for joining us.
See ya. See ya.
So, let me ask you this. Cheryl, you said your class starts on Tuesday. Michael, when does your class start?
Mine starts on Monday, but you know, it's okay to ease them in it in a sense. Like, you know, the first week is just going to be about the domain stuff, really, in my mind.
Me too.
Because it has the face-to-face aspect to it, and then they get tossed online. But I do think it'd be cool, and I'm going to do them myself, but do the broadcast like once a week, just to get that going right from the beginning. But the idea is, like, if it goes the route of, like, you know, you talking about the domain of your own stuff, and I'm in favor of that, because it's, I mean, no reason to reinvent like a great speech in a sense in description. You know, I'm flexible about how it happens, like because it's only 2 hours I see them that first Monday, and I'm doing 2 sections, and they're going to be coming in thinking the course was the way it used to be, and it's fine, like they know, but. Yeah, it's going to be a little crazy in the first week or two, but the semester ultimately is so long, and after having gone through the 5-week compressed, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake in comparison.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the 5-week thing is crazy, you know.
It was nuts.
And you know, so I think there can be a little bit of slowing it up, but I think the big decision is, I mean, I definitely could build a new space for them to aggregate to, but I want to hear what you think about, like, do you want to go that direction of having, you know, external institutions with registered students, basically? Because if we were talking about this in the spring, like, would there literally be UMW students and community students, and instructors would have their own students that they're in charge of, with the only thing that you really care about is, like, yes, they have to deal with the grading aspect, but in other ways it's like this, you know, mix of team teaching and things like that, you know?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, and I think that you could do both, right? You could filter everyone into DS-106 if you wanted to, but then also what Martha did is she had a separate site within DS-106, so that you could do this anywhere, which had just your student stuff. So you could filter by that. And I think that's basically what Cheryl was talking about too, is wherever you do that, the idea of bringing them into DS-106.us on top of that is just to kind of get that flow of allowing us to team teach and give feedback and just play with the narrative as it emerges. That's what I've liked.
But do you think? Okay? I mean, do you think that those little? How did Martha's students? Did they go to that main feed, or did they just tend to hang out in the feed of? Because it was different. Because Martha wasn't teaching technically an open course, right?
I mean, the thing is you want them probably, you're right. I mean, if you segregate out just those blogs for the class, there's always the possibility that that's all they'll see. You know, so there's always an easy way for you to segregate out your course sites by just saying them to tag it in a particular way, and then you can filter on DS-106 by tag, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that might be a way.
How did you group in the sidebar? Like, who was in that?
I just did that manually.
You manually put it in there?
I just manually said, here's all your RSSs. This is the, York College Section 1 group, York College Section 2 group. I just grabbed their RSS, their URLs, and put them in a links thing in the sidebar.
So I think ultimately, like, it can be up to the instructor. In Cheryl's case, you can probably say, I'm going to have my own little course site. If you decide to go the route where you want to use feed WordPress and feed them into just your site and use that, and we can pull it in and see it, but your students don't have to interact with it. Whereas, Michael, in your case, you can still create your own site for yourself to be able to just see your student work and be able to grade it and that kind of thing. But the communication to your students can definitely still be, you go to DS-106 to see everybody's work. Yeah. And the front-facing.
It's kind of funny because I feel like, as a participant, a lot of my viewing of other work came from just actually looking at postings via Twitter, not even always through the DS-106 site.
That's right. That's just.
But maybe that was just because I was an open participant and I wasn't paying. I mean, I did often go to DS-106 and look at the feed and filter through say the top 6 or 7 and make comments or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a little bit of both.
Yeah. And I think that's right. And having them all there, and me, I would just plow through the DS106.us site, because then I could be thorough. And I could go through and see everyone, what they'd written recently, and then I get daily digests through email.
Right.
So then I get a sense. And that's just a way of me keeping it. And I'm thinking a way for me to keeping on top of it, I could do RSS, I could look at DS106, but DS106 provides that kind of forward-facing space where all the work comes in, and then the community hopefully uses that. We could even connect that to a Twitter account, get that out on Twitter, however we want to do it. Like I said, I don't want to push DS106 like crack, but for me, it's the place to bring in that audience, hopefully. But it doesn't have to be the only place, and it doesn't necessarily, exclude doing in your own space, like Tim was saying.
And something that excites me, I think, the fact that Mary Washington is not involved in having to actually run the course to where we can be participants, is that one of the things that we've wanted to work on is just working on the presentation of the DS106 site, how you gather information. Right now it's a fire hose, and it's really hard to capture the good stuff. The cream rises to the top, but at the same time it's hard to really get a grasp on everything that's happening. So things like being able for someone who's looking at the feed to just do a simple check, yes, I like that, and then filter how many posts who has the most likes this week, and that kind of thing, and then to be able to see what the good stuff is and where the stuff's happening and what courses. So that's something where I think Mary Washington's going to get to play around a lot here in the office of just working on the site to get a better visual presentation of what's happening and where.
Because you guys have the hard work now. You're actually teaching. We can actually play and comment and have fun. And that's good to be on the other side.
Yeah, it must be. I really enjoyed being on the other side for DS106, although I'm still disappointed that I didn't get to finish the class. It's actually still sitting in my RSS reader waiting for me to go through and comment on posts anyway.
Click all that and
Which
move
is like
on.
a plan.
You were awesome.
It may not happen. I might have to clear my RSS reader and just move on, but I would still like to go see how everything finished. I still don't know what happened in the end of the narrative, so... Don't tell me! No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, watch the videos.
Yeah, I will. So, I don't know, I like the idea that I can set up my site for my class, and I can create the little Uber feed for my individual students, and I can also say, if anybody online wants to participate through that site, they can do so. But then sucking that Uber feed into DS106 sounds awesome to me, if that's okay with you guys.
That's perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here's what we can do. And I say, you know what? Treat it low and mellow, and then as it develops, it's great. But, the domain of one's own, however you want to go that, whether it's through a WordPress.com site or a blogger site or a full-blown web hosting and domain that they buy and and thing. I have some documentation on that, and I'd be more than happy as you guys get started to come into your classes or to do a video like DTLT Today, or to start with the kind of newsroom, like here's a domain of one's own, and kind of play around with the narrative and get it going next week, say by Monday, because I know that's when you're starting, work on it over the weekend, but just have something up and ready to go as you guys get started. I'm up with that, but I don't want to, if you guys want to take the first day and take a break and then maybe come back another day, but that's something, I mean, I'm up and running. We'll get that stuff into DS106 or wherever. I hope you get that set up and we'll go.
Right.
I would love the help.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I would love some help with that.
Yeah, this is
I was
payback.
at least going to start with a similar email to your first one that says, you know, you need to set up these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, here's your, if you need some support with it, I will support you in it. My class is a hybrid, so normally it would meet twice a week. We're going to meet once a week every Tuesday and offload everything else to online. So I will get FaceTime with the students to help them with stuff like that.
Good.
Without having to do it only through office hours.
So
So that'll
perfect.
be good.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Same with you, Michael? You have a hybrid too?
I do have a hybrid too, yeah, and we're meeting on Monday, and I'm game to like have their first broadcast. It can be, you know, on like it'll be like, you know, the Summer of Oblivion, where there's a live broadcast and they can check in and listen after that Monday, because it can't be simultaneous because the sections are they follow one another on Monday anyway. So it couldn't be. It's not going to be live for everyone, regardless.
That's right.
So there's that, and I'm just in my mind, I'm just still thinking about the, you know, setting up the other site thing and aggregating feeds to it is fine. The one thing I think about that is I just worry about the students that's where they'll spend all their time instead of going to the main DS106 site. That's where I think that tension exists in terms of, you know, putting them in different spaces. And I don't know, I mean, sometimes it's just an organizational issue, but, you know.
Well, and I'm lucky in that way, because we're supposed to be using all kinds of different spaces, whichever ones they want to, plus the ones I make them use.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can, it's not a, there's something about that they know from the get-go that they're part of this community and they can expect. And one of the things that's obviously so exciting about it is the moment they push their first like feed in there, they're getting feedback from people they don't even know. Never, you know, they're not even going to know they're not even part of their class, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I can go either way, like going, you know, foregoing an aggregation, you know, my own Uber site, and going directly in, or vice versa. I can go either way.
Yeah. Well, you think about that. I mean, I'm more than happy to have them set up profiles on DS106 and jump right in for the very reasons you talked about community. Like Uber site is just, if, you know, I can understand that the problem with the DS106.us site, technically, I mean, there is, and that's what Tim had alluded to, is that, you know, it's not always so easy to navigate, and there's a lot of stuff coming at you. So that might be one of the ways. But if you have them tag it like York Sec 1 or something like that, we can actually filter it by all their posts by a category or tag. So that's one way to make it easy.
I can also, you know, aggregate just their feeds myself, you know what I mean? So I'm not myself necessarily missing anything.
Yeah, you could do that in GReader or whatever.
You know, so I'm not, for my own like purposes of making sure I'm on top of individuals. That's not a problem. I can, you know, and ultimately you have their sites and you can look at their feeds and things like that. So I can do that, and, you know, for your own archival purposes, I think there's probably a lot of value to that.
Yeah.
I'm just more concerned of, and so that's easy. Like, it's more of the space that they build. I just want I kind of, so there's a part of me that I enjoy. You go into ds106.us and you're like, oh, there's that front page and there's all these feeds, and they're going through them and trying to find people to comment on. And I want them to not feel like, oh, if there's this other space, I'm going to go there first and just focus on my own class. And that's the place they'll go first, just to do all their commenting. Because they're also going to be, I think, amazed to see their instructors making stuff. Like, that so rarely happens.
Yeah, and it's
important.
important.
The instructors participating in content production with the students, you know.
It's big.
Yeah, I have a, last semester I taught a Photoshop class, and we used a WordPress blog for the students to publish a lot of their tutorial work and document their processes and stuff, and they really loved that. The site, I was sort of developing the site as we went along, so at first it had like 2 pages, like a start here page, and that was it. Then I started adding calendars, posting assignments, and a lot of them commented that I really loved seeing you build this.
Yeah.
Like, it showed me a lot of what's possible, even though the class isn't related to the web. So they really like that, and I think it's yeah, like doing it with your students the way that Jim started with DS 106, building that with them and letting them participate in it. They just get so excited about it compared to learning, software out of a book. So yeah,
That's right.
I think it's great.
Take care, Lou. I'm sorry, Lou's taken off from the chat. We have been monitoring the chat, Lou. But you're awesome, and I still have to comment on your awesome DS106 final post. And Jason Green, sorry about the reverb. Yeah. But Cheryl, I agree with that, and I agree that this idea of building alongside them and watching it go, and watching it just develop is huge. And that's something you don't. It's something on the other side with a prefabbed site like DS106. You're not going to see that to the same degree. But you are going to see other people creating stuff, like you said, Michael, particularly your faculty and other people who, like, you don't even know. Which, that's a trip.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to really, the notion that they know that I have my domain out there and I'm going to be constantly making stuff with them and doing daily shoots. I think that's always a big part of it, is they see how you act and behave and comment, and they feed off of that.
That's right. Absolutely.
And then the story side, gosh, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the story side's interesting too, because you can't predict it. It's like you introduce the unpredictable, which for me is the real art. It's the it's a real value, and for me the art of a class is to introduce that unpredictability and let people run with it and be able to do it.
Yeah.
So.
All right, I have to go too. I have to do advising, sadly.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a good conversation.
Oh, what? Sadly, that's a good thing to do.
No, they shove us in an atrium. It's hysterical.
Oh, dear.
Like, there's like 20 faculty in a big giant room. We each represent a different department, and you help everybody. But it's cool.
Okay, so as a follow-up, I know it's like what, Thursday?
I know.
So maybe I'll email you too, or we'll start getting something running, so that we get a sense of where it is. Just so, if you need anything or if you need us, Mary Washington is here to support you now because you've done it for us. So now...
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually setting up a WordPress while we're talking. But yeah, I'll be ready when that email comes with some stuff.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, and I'll send you what I think too about the aggregation stuff.
Perfect.
And account stuff.
Let's do it.
Because it's going to be at this school, like our email, our students don't look at their student email at all, like literally at all. So I can't even email them ahead of time. It's just undependable. Which is the reality of it all. It sucks, but
yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it'll be a slow start either way, and the first day will be about like, all right, this is how this is going to function. Now start building, and it'll be interesting from there.
So let's get this party started.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Take
care, guys.
Bye, Timmy. Bye.
Bye.
Jim.
Bye.
Cheryl.
Michael, Cheryl, be good.
Bye.
That's exciting stuff.
That is. I like the idea that it's moving outside of UMW.
Yeah.
And that we're not for a couple of reasons. I think we need to focus, like you said, on the site and the design of it and just kind of like sharpen it. But, and it's funny, it's like one of the things that came up that I didn't expect to come up today, but I'm glad it did, is, I don't want to treat DS106 like go through there, do that. But for me, it just seems like a natural layup.
Yeah. Like
your feed comes in, you have the audience, it's easy for me to review because that's where I read everything, and like then you're all set. The idea that might create a problem is interesting too.
Yeah.
In that, yeah, the idea that it's interesting too is for me is that I want to be on the other side of just creating stuff and playing around with the story.
Right.
Like I want all the technical stuff and the domain stuff, which is important to be taken care of.
Yeah.
But then I want to get into the idea of, because to me that was the Oblivion stuff that really got me was.
Yeah.
Then you got into a crazy story, and then you're developing and building for a reason.
Well, this has probably been the longest DTLT Today episode, so I think we should probably wrap up. Thanks to the people who are watching out there, Jason Green, Lou McGill, and for anybody else who's following along and preparing for the fall. It's about to begin.
That's right.
So let's bring it on.
Bring it on.
Peace, y'all.